All right, let's talk more about the state of Israel's internal politics and what Israel may want to hear from President Trump tonight. Joining me is Daniel Pomerantz. He is the executive director of Honest Reporting. Daniel, very quickly, what is the significance of this Likud primary for Netanyahu tonight in terms of a barometer of his power and influence right now?
Well, you know, if you ever heard Americans complain about the two-party system, you've got to hear Israelis complain about the multi-party system. It's tremendously complex. But I think the most important thing right now is that the Likud party holds 30 seats in the Knesset. And polls show that as of right now, if the elections were held today, they would also win 30 seats and still be the leading party. What that tells us is that even with all of these corruption cases and the potential that there may be an indictment against Prime Minister Netanyahu, it has not had an effect on the electorate.
All right. Well, we are assuming that the U.S., the Trump administration, is waiting to see what happens in terms of Israeli elections before coming out with the Middle East peace plan. Do you expect that to be mentioned tonight at all in the State of the Union address? I mean, the president can list moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem under his promises kept column.
Yes.
What degree of Israel do you think will be featured tonight?
Well, you know, we've been hearing about the deal of the century for quite a long time, but we haven't heard much in the way of detail. There have been some very minor speculation, but there haven't been the kind of solid leaks that we hear when a policy is about to be announced. So my guess is that if we hear something, it will be minimal and cursory, because I just don't think the deal is there yet at the point where the president is ready to start announcing and really selling it.
All right, we do expect the president to perhaps mention the move regarding withdrawing troops from Syria. That has received some condemnation, including from the Republican Party. And we saw that in concrete terms in that bill that we saw the Senate pass today, which is really urging the president not to pull troops out of Syria and to better assess the situation there. What does that mean, do you think, effectively? Do you see the president reversing his decision here?
You know, I just had a meeting a few weeks ago at the Kiryat, which is Israel's Pentagon, and I spoke with a number of Israeli generals. And they said that their feeling is that 2,000 U.S. troops in northern Syria have had almost no effect on Hezbollah or Iran, which is really the forces that affect Israel. Israel has always thought the U.S. should have a greater presence. But from an Israeli point of view, the difference between 2,000 troops and no troops in terms of Hezbollah and Iran is almost minimal. So whether the president changes his opinion or his position or not, we don't think from a Middle East point of view that these 2,000 troops will have a significant effect on the reality on the ground in Syria.
What about deterrence, sending a message of deterrence to Iran? Does withdrawing the troops perhaps embolden Iran?
You know, what we found is that Turkey was threatening to take military action in northern Syria. Now, if they were to move ahead with that, 2,000 U.S. troops would not be able to stand alone without reinforcements. So really the question the president has to ask himself, is he ready to reinforce those troops and create a larger, stronger U.S. presence, or pull them out entirely? Keeping things where they are simply isn't an option anymore.
Do you think that he may provide a rationale for his move in his speech tonight? Because he's indicated, as we say, that he also wants to lessen the presence of U.S. troops in Afghanistan, perhaps bolster them in Iraq to better keep an eye on Iran. Do you think he may expand on that this evening?
Well, the rationale he's been positing for Syria so far has been that the U.S. mission was to defeat ISIS, and ISIS is essentially defeated, so the mission is over. Of course, this reality in Syria is not that simple, and a lot of the fighting against ISIS has actually come from other parties as well, including Bashar Assad's forces. But if he raises a rationale, that's the one I would expect to hear.
Daniel, this bill just approved by the Senate also makes it easier for states and localities to approve laws to combat the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. Very quickly, in the end, 22 of 47 Democrats voted against the bill. What do you make of that in about 20 seconds?
What I make of that is it was a highly bipartisan bill, as it should be. A boycott against Israel is illegal under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. It's essentially an act of war. And it's also an act of anti-Semitism, singling out Israel to a unique double standard. It's gratifying and very positive to see, even in this polarized age, that the United States stands strongly by Israel.
And yet, 22 Democrats voted against it. Daniel, thank you so much.